I don't know if I want to be on YouTube. That stuff makes me nervous, but it's fine. So the topic of the call is I have two things I want to cover today, and it is based off of everything I know most people on this call are struggling with. I've been thinking about these topics for like the past 2 weeks. I told Jonah, I said, I need to do a call. I don't know if you have somebody booked, but you need to move them to another week because I have stuff I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to cover with people is I hate echoing into the out there. I wish I had my AirPods. I don't know where they're at.
Do you want to use mine, Claudia?
No, it's okay. I'll suck it up.
All right.
Um, so the first thing I want to talk about is lead spend. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because a lot of people focus on ROI, although some of your ROIs aren't even as good as you make it out to be. Something that has always been an industry-wide kind of average as a whole is whatever you put into leads, you can estimate that you will 4 to 6x your lead spend. If you are somebody sitting on this call who has different averages than that, that is not what is common. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's not even accurate. Because last week, after having so many thoughts and discussions about this, I texted everybody who had an accountability call with me. Most people didn't get back to me, but those who did, I analyzed. I said, hey, I want you to write down and calculate what your October, November, and December lead spend was, how much you deposited, because I don't care about submitted business. I don't care about issue paid business. I want to know how much you deposited. And, what does that look like? And it is really funny how many people's numbers are the exact same 4 to 6x averages. So if you're somebody sitting on this call who is not happy with your results and not happy with your net profit, I want to challenge you to spend more in leads and to counter that with you don't immediately have to jump to a strong point. If you are not financially or skilled and ready to go that route of a $50 lead, please don't hurt yourself by doing that. But if you are calling, which a lot of us are calling like our aged ARIAs, our aged, and leads. I've gone over these numbers before, and clearly a lot of you guys did not write these numbers down, so I want you to write them down again. If it is under 12 months old and it is a mail-in lead, who everybody has their notepads out and their phones. If it is under 12 months old and it is a mail-in lead, you need a minimum of 150 of those in a week. 150. If you are somebody who thinks I'm not that good, buy 200. That's what I used to do when I wasn't that great. If it is a year old to 2 years old, we're going to go in that 250 to 300 range. And anything that is going to be over 3 years old, literally buy like 300. And with these numbers that I gave you, if you whatever lead type you're calling, if you're calling less than 12 months old and I tell you 150, you need to make sure you're getting through all 150 by the end of the week. If you're not able to get through all those leads by the end of the week, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that, it is because you are A, getting distracted on the phones, getting distracted throughout your dial day, you're not staying disciplined. Or it is B, you are giving too many people time and energy that don't deserve it. Something I loved that Jonah actually talked about this morning in our morning huddle, as well as Kelly touched on last week at our lock-ins. If you weren't here, I'm just going to give you a brief summary. Is we want people to tell us no 20 minutes in, 12 minutes in. If you're like, oh no, I'm not going to ask for the banking up front because I don't want to turn them away. Would you rather them tell you, no, I'm not giving you my banking an hour and a half in or 12 minutes in? A lot of you on this call are giving those people the time and, not doing the things to scare them away. And you're wasting so much time on these phone calls with people who you're not closing. And quite frankly, most people wouldn't close. So if you're not able to hit that like weekly lead limit that I'm giving you guys, it is probably because you are giving too many people time. I have agents come up to me all the time and they're like, Claudia, I'm dealing with this, this, and this. And an analogy I got from Mindy was a lead is a lemon. You can only physically squeeze so much juice out of it. And a lot of you guys are trying to squeeze more juice than you need. And all of those numbers I just gave you, if you are calling a like Aria lead or a Titan, a call-in lead, add an extra 100. Add an extra 100 to whatever number I just gave you. So if it's 12 months or like less than 12 months, you better call 250 because the intent is way lower. Did everybody get those numbers? Does anybody need me to repeat those? I want to make sure if I question somebody about it, you better give me the number. Please repeat. All right, Jesus, I will repeat. If it is less than 12 months old and a mail-in lead, you need 150 to 200. If it's 12 months to 2 years old, you need 250 to 300. And if it is over 2 years old, you need 350 minimum. These are numbers I got from Gabe Erickson a couple years ago on a call. And the second he said those things, I started buying more leads. And you know what started happening? Who can guess? Anybody? I started closing more. I guess nobody wants to speak up. That's okay. I started closing more when I started buying more leads. I also feel like I should share this because I've shared it recently and not a lot of people have realized it. If I'm giving you these numbers and you feel like you suck, buy more. If a lead vendor is having a sale, don't use that as an opportunity to buy less, like spend less money in leads. Use that as the opportunity to get more out of what you're paying. Spend the same amount, get more. My turning point in this industry was when a lead vendor was having a sale, and instead of calling 150 leads for 2 days of run days, that was just kind of like the rule back then when we ran in person, called on Monday to book appointments for Tuesday, Wednesday. Instead of calling 150 on Monday to book my appointments for Tuesday, Wednesday, I called 250 leads in a single day. Granted, I was booking appointments. It's a little bit different with our one call closing, but I called 250 leads between 7:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. with a 30-minute lunch break to eat some food and take Winnie out. Those next 2 days, I had booked 19 appointments. I did 8,900, and that was my very first death claim as well, was from those days. And so those are all the points I'm making here. I have had an agent tell me I'm not happy with what I netted last year. Not going to call the person out, not going to get into specifics. This person sent me all of their expenses from last year. I said, dude, everything you spent, you 4x your investment, which is exactly the bare minimum. No matter how bad you are, no matter how much you don't work, you will 4x your investment. So why are you upset about your results of how much you netted if you only spent this much? So many agents on this call are spending not enough. I spoke to an agent yesterday who said, this month I spent more. And let me show you what happened that month. I spent, let's say he spent 20, I think he spent 2,500 that week or that month. And I think he deposited like 2,500, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. I just remember the number being so close. And he's like, I have a bad taste in my mouth from spending more in leads. And this is why keeping track of your numbers is so huge. We looked back at that month. I said, dude, let's look at where your activity was. You weren't working as hard. You thought, oh, just because I'm spending more in leads, I can be lazy. People think, oh, start calling strong points or issue paid leads. I start calling exclusive, digital mortgage leads, and I can dial less. I can work less. Maybe when you're a few months in and your skill set is up. But this agent spot strong points for 4 weeks straight and left the office early most days, didn't hit his dial goal most days, and didn't supplement with aged mortgage leads. I'm not going to go into super specifics unless you guys want me to, although I do have other stuff I want to talk about today because I don't want to keep it super vague. If we want to get specific, yeah, that person just texted me, yeah, I'm talking about you and you're going to fix it. Um, sorry, that threw me off. I need to like put my phone on do not disturb. So if anybody wants me to talk about specifics with them off the call, I'm happy to do that. But I also don't think any of these situations are a one shoe fits all. If you have the financial means to buy something more exclusive, do it. But if you're going to be somebody who's like, I'm going to try strong points for a week, you're not going to get anywhere trying them for a week. So I'm saying it's not a one shoe fits all. So if anybody wants me to get specifics after, I will. If anybody wants to text me individually after, I will. Jonah, anything that I said like 15 minutes ago that I missed?
Yeah. I mean, it's Claudia does a lot, Claudia does accountability calls with a lot of you guys. And I feel like it's to the point where like, we say spend more on lead, like buy more leads, buy more leads, buy more leads, this like till we're blue in the face. And it's like, oh, like I get it, like I need to buy more leads. But it's like, guys, everybody, like the amount of agents that have come to me and they're like, Jonah, I'm struggling, I'm not closing, I'm not good, I need to work on my presentation, I don't know what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, what was your lead spend? Okay, what are the numbers? And it's funny how, it's just when you look at the numbers and analyze it, everybody's biggest issue is lead spend and not investing back in your business. And I'm looking at a lot of the faces on this call. A lot of you guys, have never owned a business before. Well, whether you realize it or not, coming into the insurance industry, into this opportunity, you guys are all independent business owners. So you need to treat it like a business. You have expenses. Okay. You have expenses. Leads are our expenses. We get chargebacks. That's okay. All these different things. Like look at Walmart. Walmart, they have to spend money in inventory to get products into their store. Their version of a chargeback is stolen inventory. Okay. So they factor that into their numbers and into their pricing when they calculate what they need to calculate. So, we say it till we're blue in the face, but it's you guys, if you guys are struggling and you're not tracking your numbers, we don't really have sympathy for you because all it is a numbers game. And the math works out. Claudia, I'll tell you that.
The math does math. And I'm going to give this example here because this is really when it clicked in my brain of when I had this phone call with this one agent. So some of you have seen this little example here. It is also of another agent. And Buck, I actually agree about retention, but to be honest, if you look at the issue paid, people also aren't issuing a lot. But retention is another topic we should definitely talk about. Some of you have seen this because I shared it at the lock-in. Don't worry whose numbers these are. I did not share your name. But I had an agent who said they spent $1,500 in the month of November in leads. He issued around 13 and he deposited around 7. When you do the math, that's like a 4.67x on his investment. He netted after his lead spend $5,500. That's not bad. If you are 20 years old and this is your first time in a sales gig, $5,500 is not bad. I showed this to an agent last week, a different agent, and they literally looked at this number and go, that's not bad. I could pay my bills with that. This agent, personal bills were $3,500. Yeah, you could do all of your personal bills of $3,500 with $5,500. I mean, we know how to do math. That's what, 2,000 left over. Okay, sure, we could do that. And then I'm just going to skip over here because I have all the math somewhere else. Because, wait, actually, also, here's the thing. If you only net $5,500 a month, which most of you are in this category, I mean, you guys don't have to raise your hand, but a lot of you have sent me your lead spends, and I know what your lead spends are. I know what your issue paid business is, and so I can guess how much most of you guys are depositing. Most of you are in this category of spending around $1,500 to $1,000 a month in leads, and you're probably issuing around this and depositing around this, if not less. And if you're more, maybe you just had a good month because it's not going to be sustainable long term. This agent goes, oh, I can pay my $3,500 in bills with this and have 2,000 left over. I'm like, yeah, that's very close to what you already did. I think the first time I did the math, it was like 1,800. So let's just say it was 1,800. Shit comes up. I was like, okay, so that means you're reinvesting 1,800 back into leads. Do you expect to have different results if you're putting the exact same amount in leads? Week to week, month to month. So many people on this call are getting frustrated. They're not doing more. I'm not getting better. I'm not doing more. I'm stuck at this 8K a month. I'm stuck at this 12K a month. Dude, most of you, I won't say none of you, most of you are not spending more. It's every single week, it's 300, 500, 600. Sometimes it's, I didn't spend money on leads this week. I'm redialing what I bought last week. If you keep in this cycle of spending the same amount, you're going to, on average, issue the same amount and deposit the same amount and just keep putting yourself in this same cycle. You are here where you are making money and you are spending money. You are making money and you are spending money. You are making money and you're spending money. That was me my first 6 months of the business. I will gladly screen share my bank statements because I recently made a folder of all of my broke days. It was like this. How do you break that cycle unless you get a whale of a deal? How do you break that cycle unless you magically get better? I mean, I think we all have room for improvement, but also the easy way, the simple way, the quickest way while you're working on your improvement is spending more. So then I started breaking down the numbers here. Because I told this agent, I said, if this is it, you need to not do this. Like, you can't look at this and say that's not bad. Because what happens if you get sick one week? Who here's gotten sick and couldn't work for a week? When you get back to work, are you immediately jumping back right back into it and having the same success you were before? No. Momentum is real. You get sick, it takes time. It even happens to the best people like Buck, who literally came to me and was like, Claudia, I don't know what's going on. And it was literally just because like he went on vacation. Not to throw shade at Buck, but like even some of the people who are at the top of the leaderboards every single month, they take time out and it still takes time to get back into it. So like, yeah, this might be cool for you, but what if you get sick? What if you have a massive chargeback? You cannot sustain this. So then I broke down the numbers of if you can spend $1,000 a week in leads, which Ethan Corsi is a really good example because he started spending $1,000 a week in leads. And whoo, here's the kicker, guys. He started issue paying $20,000 a month consistently when he started doing that. That's not a shock to me. So if I had to guess, if he's issuing around 20, he's going to probably deposit around this. This is a 4X investment, bare minimum. You might be somebody who's a little bit better. You might have a 6X. You might have a 7X. I'm doing the numbers for those who are average. After your lead spend, you're going to net profit $12,000 when you spend more. And then what are you going to do? You have your $3,500 in bills, your leftover after leads. You buy leads again, the same amount. Then you have a $4,500 cushion in your bank account. Who here has a $4,500 cushion in their bank account right now? Not a lot of us. Some of us. But I can tell you right now, not a lot of us. And I think we want it. Who here wants a minimum of $4,500 sitting in their account at all times? More, probably. So then we do it again. We spend another $4,000 in leads. We deposit another 16. We have our bills. We have our leftover before leads. We buy leads again. Our new cushion, 9,000. And what happens when you keep doing that? Who can guess what happens when you keep doing that? Somebody.
Buy a McLaren.
Yeah, you get to buy a McLaren after 4 years. It keeps growing, guys. Like, I don't say, like Jonah said, like, we don't say it just to say it. We don't say it because it benefits us. I don't give a shit where you buy your leads from. I don't care if you want to buy ARIA leads. You just better buy enough of them. I don't care if you want to only do strong points. I don't care if you want to run your own lead campaign. But whatever you put in, you will 4X. And if you are spending $300 a week in leads, you are not going to be happy 6 months, a year down the road. Because there are people on here who are not happy and are expressing they're not happy. We went over their numbers, and would you know, they don't suck. Most of you don't suck. It's just your lead spend. And if you want to talk about specifics on what leads to buy, call me after. We'll talk about it. But it's 2:26 now. I'm going to open it up for questions at the end, but I want to also pivot over to something else that I know we're all struggling with. Who here gets 15 minimum presentations a week?
Hey, Claudia.
Yeah.
Before you move on from lead spend, I want to add to that because it's not exactly what I want to echo what Claudia said. First of all, we're telling this not for our benefit, but for your guys' benefit. Just to clarify, a lot of agencies and a lot of insurance companies own their own lead company, and they make a lot of profitability off of their leads that they sell to their agents. Me and Claudia do not. We make $0 off the leads you guys buy. And we have zero financial benefit to tell you guys to buy more leads. The reason we're telling you guys to buy more leads is because we want to see you guys win and we want to see you guys become successful. And me and Claudia will never tell you guys anything that either A, we have not done, or B, we are not willing to do. So I'm telling you guys this from experience. The best thing I did as a brand new agent was spend money on leads. Because you know what? I came in here and I fucking sucked. I was not good. So the best thing I ever did is like I was able to get enough reps to figure this thing out, to make mistakes and still have a profitable return on my investment. And the best advice I ever got was invest $2,500 a week on leads. When I first started, that freaking terrified me. That was scary. I was coming from a job where I was making half of that a week. I wasn't even making $2,500 a week. And then now I go from not even making $2,500 to investing $2,500 into leads. That's a lot. And I didn't start out doing that. I worked my way up, but I kept reinvesting, kept doing what I needed to do until I got to that point. So the reason that I was able to, and then over the course of my first full year in this business, January to December, the reason I was able to issue pay $550,000 is not because I have some special innate talent and I'm a crazy good closer and I'm just really freaking good at sales, because my talent was below average and I don't have anything that you all don't have, was because I had the lead spend and the work ethic to back the numbers. And I'm happy to send anybody on this call my P&Ls or my lead spend. Like first full year on leads, I spent $130,000 on leads. Spent 6 figures on leads. Issue paid $550. Second year, spent the exact same, kept the exact same lead spend, exact same work ethic. Spent $130,000 on leads, like $132,000. Issue paid $780. The only difference, my skill set simply went up. Do you think I would have wrote almost $800,000 in business if I would have been spending $300 a week? Fuck no. I would not have. So the biggest thing is, like, I can tell you guys from experience, you guys want to be profitable and make a lot of money. Like, there is from 0 to 20, like, you're going to make some money, like you're going to have some profit. But I can tell you guys, like, from 20K to 40K, that's when the real profitability kicks in. And that's when you really start making some real money.
I was just going to expose myself really quickly because you said you would never tell anybody to do something we wouldn't do. I literally put my last dollars into this. And people might assume that Jonah helped me out in the beginning, which he was helpful, but not financially. Because this is me 2 weeks into the business. If you're in this position, don't think you can't get out of it. This was my desk when I started. I slept on an air mattress for 5 months and I didn't have a table. This was my desk when I started. You haven't seen the video. This was my apartment. It smelled like cigarettes. I'm pretty sure the guy above me beat his wife. And this is what it looked like. It was like awful. But whatever. And then thanks. And then I paid my rent late. A month into living where I lived, my rent was only $900. Maybe I could have paid it, but I put my money into leads first. I bought my first table for $25 in Facebook Marketplace. Winnie's sleeping on my air mattress. Winnie has been there since day one. Here's my mom telling me that I'm late on my car insurance and my phone bill. And then my car insurance is coming out next week again, or this week again. So I was already owed her. And then I was about to be behind again because it came out again. Oh, and then Fifth Third Bank called my mom and sent a letter because I didn't pay my car payment, which was $500, which was stupid. This is April, 2 months in. I had 63 available dollars on my credit card. I was eating like peanut butter and jellies 3 times a week. And then I upgraded to rice and eggs. And then still 2 months later, I ended up in this situation again. And it fucking sucked, but I still didn't give up. And then I get a 5-day notice. I was actually kind of freaking out when I first got this. I sent it to Jonah. I'm like, what the fuck do I do? He was like, you go to fucking work. And I was like, shit, okay. If you think Jonah was nicer to me than he is to you guys, he wasn't. It was all love. Oh, and then this is me telling an agent about my 250 leads. So this was what? A day after I got this, I said, fuck it. I bought 250 leads and then I had my 18 appointments booked. And then I made money. So we show my January money in, February, March, April. And then I got paid for my 8K 2 days, and that was cool. But I didn't go paying shit off. I didn't go paying off debt that I've had forever. I didn't go paying off credit cards, although credit cards, I don't really blame because then you can put the money back on the leads. But like if you have debt you're afraid of, how long have you had it for? What's an extra few months? It's not that deep. After this week, I still ran into one of these again. I still was just like, fuck it. I paid late so many times. What's another month? It's not going to hurt me. And then this shows my money in again. Keep in mind, July, I took this at the beginning of July. So then we have like the rest of April, the rest of May, the rest of June. I was literally putting all of my money into leads, whatever I could. It was going into leads and gas because I was eating like shit. But then also I wanted to show my money out because I wasn't afraid to put my money back into leads. You can literally see $200 or $747 in leads was one of my expenses. My top 3 was rent, leads, and leads. I was not afraid to spend more money on leads. And you cannot be afraid to spend more money on leads. It will come back. It will compound. That's the end of that rant. Jonah said he wouldn't do anything that we wouldn't say anything to do that we didn't do. I think sometimes people forget that like I was you. Like I don't share that often. I kind of forget to share that, honestly. But I ate peanut butter and jelly like freaking probably for like a month straight. Upgraded to rice and eggs with a little bit of soy sauce. Like, anyways, that's all I have on leads. I really do want to pivot. I did not want it to be all about me yelling at you guys. I do love you guys. I want to give you something a little bit more tactical, but also like if you make a good sale, or let's say you normally spend 300, maybe this week you spend 500. Maybe you spend 600, 700. Like it doesn't have to be dramatic if that's not what you have. But if you have the money, we'll talk about it. We will lead, strategize, and create a game plan. But you cannot make it anywhere on 300 a week, $1,000 a month. It's not going to get you anywhere. Okay, we're going to pivot.
All said with love. Love all you guys.
I love you all so much. I don't come on here and rant ever, unless it's love. All right, my next topic. Who here presents to more than 15 people a week?
Drop an emoji in the chat if you present to more than 15 people a week, please.
All right, who here presents to more than 10 a week? 10 or more on average. Raise your hand, drop an emoji. All right. I'm not going to make you call yourself out, but a lot of you are sitting in that 5 to 7 range. I know because I look at your numbers. I know because I know your lead spend. I know because I look at your issue paid business. I look at your submitted business. If you're in that 5 to 7 range, you're probably hitting yourself against your head against the wall thinking, why do I suck? Why can't I get more? If your answered to presentation rate is less than 12%, you have something to fix, and leads are also not going to be the only thing going to fix your problem. Maybe it'll compensate a little bit, but it's not going to solve your problem if your answer to presentation rate is less than 12%. I want to first start, and I want to, who do I want to call on first? I'm going to call on Ryan first because he actually already gave me his explanation on what he does. Ryan, I actually haven't spotlighted any of us. I'm gonna spotlight you for those who don't know Ryan. Ryan's actually a new agent. Where are you at? I lost
Hey.
you. Hold on. I don't know where you're at.
Search him in the chat or in the search box.
Can I send him from here? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. All right.
Yep.
So for those who don't know Ryan started around October. He was in that 7-ish range on presentations. Now, granted, Ryan has like how many years of sales experience?
10.
10 years of sales experience. So I would cut him a little bit of slack that my advice to him was a little bit more, it was just very simple and he fixed it very quickly. And I'm going to give him grace for that. But he was getting like booking like 25 appointments a week and was getting like 7 presentations. And his answer presentation rate was like dog shit. And I said, you need to fix it. You need to go for more one-call closes. You need to stop booking appointments. You need to get more presentations. So Ryan, in like a minute or 2 or 3 or however long you need, I guess, like share a little bit on like what mindset shift you changed to go from, because also his first, like he went from like 7 presentations and then he went to 8 presentations and 5 of them were one-call closes. And I think the following weeks I was looking at him today was like 17 presentations, 16 of them came from a one-call close. He did like 9K that week. And it was like his first like big week ever. So like talk a little bit about like what tweaks did you make to really like get into the one-call close, not settle for appointments and push for those presentations?
Yeah. I mean, this is a big testament to you. I think this is a Barstool hat. Yeah. Girl dad. Your accountability call. I mean, that was our first accountability call that we did after my first 4 weeks. The 5th week, we did the accountability call, and shout out to tracking the numbers. Like you guys keep saying, the numbers don't lie. And when we were able to actually visibly see you're booking appointments, but you're not sitting appointments, you're not getting presentations, it was just like a very simple aha moment for me, where I was just like, okay, I know what I need to do as well. And when you told me you need a one-call close, it was like for me, having done it for as long as I have, yeah, there's that level of experience that definitely helps in the aspect of like knowing what I need to do and then just executing on it. So what did I do? I think one of the biggest things that I always gave to my reps when I was doing door to door over the years was the importance of being very, very assumptive in sales. I mean, you listen to the best of all the guys who are writing high IP months, you know, Jonah, Caleb Coombs, like listening to Caleb Coombs specifically, I'll never forget how exceptionally assumptive that dude is about everything that he's saying. You're not asking anybody to grab a pen and paper. You're not asking them for their bank information. You're telling them to get it. You're telling them to do what you're needing them to do. You're not asking them, you're telling them. So, you know, when it comes to knowing how assumptive you need to be, it's then going to come to this like fine balance of like, just like Claudia said earlier on the call too, not wasting your time with the people that aren't probably the right people. Because you could probably bully yourself into a lot of presentations, but you got to be picky and choosy. And once you start getting better at being assumptive and telling them what you need them to do, they're going to fall in line and you're going to start to ask the right questions that allow you to focus on the right people at that point. So for me, it was ultimately just get into the presentation. Once I knew I needed to get into the presentation, I knew what I needed to do. It was be assumptive. And then obviously looking at the numbers and seeing the transparency that showed us what the problem was. that helps. So definitely track the numbers and definitely be assumptive.
Thank you for that. Yeah, assumptiveness is definitely key. And we would have never, we don't track your numbers. We would have never known that was his problem if he didn't track his numbers. So thank you so much for sharing, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to open up for questions at the end. So if you have questions for Ryan, write them down so you don't forget, hold them at the end. Next person I want to talk to is Tristan. Tristan is, I feel like he's kind of like a silent assassin. I don't know. I feel like you don't talk a lot of shit, but maybe you do in your office. But you're always like consistently in that like 25 to 35, marker at the end of every month. And I looked at your accountability tracker this morning because me and Tristan don't meet much anymore, but I do keep tabs because he is, doing consistent numbers. And I looked at his numbers today, and his answer to presentation rate is like 25% on average. And that is taking into account, when he first got started in his bad weeks. So like, if your excuse is, oh, my overall average is from all those really bad weeks, like Tristan's is too, and his overall average is 26 or 24 or something. So Tristan, what would your, in a couple minutes, share on, when you get them on the phone, like getting into that presentation? Like, if you've always been good at it, if you have been, what do you do to get into it? And if you haven't always been good at it, what changes did you make to get into more?
I don't know. I would say the biggest thing also is just being assumptive. Like the first few months in the business, I was always asking like, can you, do you wanna, things like that. The biggest thing is just watching like big guys like Shoddy. Shoddy is the most assumptive person I've ever met, and I've taken a lot of notes from him. So I really just started being assumptive, things like that. Um, I don't know. A big thing is just being coachable. Like at first, yeah, I was ass so bad, but now like I'm getting better and better and better. Um, I don't know. It just comes with time and work. I mean, I come into the office, I I put my head down. Everyone in the office says that too. I come in, I don't talk to anyone, put the head down and just dial. That's all I do.
That's good. That's good. All right. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Tristan is a savage. Maybe that's why he doesn't talk shit, because he's too busy dialing the phones. That would make sense.
That's how it should be.
That's what you gotta do.
And then we have Vish, who does talk a lot of shit, but Vish is allowed to because he's always at the top. If you guys didn't realize, Vish did 57,000 in the month of December, and he's already submitted like 50K, 60K, 2 weeks into the month. Vish is also somebody who gets like a fuck ton of presentations. It's really funny because on the call this morning, people were asking like, how many presentations did you have to do to get these numbers? Like, what's your average policy? His average policy is like 1,800. He did like 17 presentations one week and like 15 the next. That's how he did like the 50. It's like, it's not like he's any better than you. Except he is better at getting into presentation. So besides assumptiveness, because I feel like that's also obviously like the common thing, what would you say you do? Or maybe like even like give a little bit of a pitch. Maybe we can kind of transition a little bit there and give a little bit of a pitch on, what are you saying to get into more presentations? Like instead of, oh, I'm busy at work right now, can you call me back later?
My main thing was kind of the conviction of the product itself. So actually believing in life insurance and wanting to sell it to someone who did request it. Like I said earlier, it's not something that I'm just cold calling. It's actually a warm lead. So the conviction honestly translated to the confidence in selling the product. But getting into presentations, I guess, is just like I don't bully them. I don't try to push it. I kind of really am selective on who I talk to and who I want to talk to. So I think based on that, it's kind of just where I put my energy towards each client.
Yeah. And if somebody tells you like, I'm busy at work right now, can you call me later? What is your response as like a quick little role play?
If they're
Or I
at
can
work,
call
I
back
don't.
up later.
Yeah, if they're at work, I don't even push it. If it's a one-legger, I don't push it. I'm like, okay, we're gonna set up a time. I'm like, what time are you off work? I'll give you a 30-minute window to get home, whatever, and then I'll give you a call then.
So with that, let me ask this, because I feel like this is maybe what some people are thinking, because, and maybe I think this comes down to lead type. Are you somebody who like organizes your lead by age? And like if they're young and working class, are you calling them later in the day, or do you not give a fuck?
Yeah, I do sort it from oldest to youngest.
You do? Okay. So you
I
are
do.
calling. I know people, they talk about that in the digital mortgage call with the strong points. They do that too. And I mean, my rule of thumb used to be call them whenever, but that's good to know. So you're kind of like hitting the retired people during the day and you're working people in the evening.
Yeah, I used to not, but now it kind of changed and I can get
When,
deals much quicker because they're
do
older.
you know when you switched it? I want to go like look back at your numbers and what changed. It's okay if you don't know.
Whenever the numbers are highest is probably then.
Probably then. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's good. And then Jenna, while I'm talking to people, do you have any other questions for them, or do you want to just keep going?
I think
I still have one more person to call on, then we have to open it for Q&A. So if you don't have anything, don't force it.
no, yeah. Actually, I do want to add one thing. Really, what Vish said, I want to emphasize the importance of that and echo that. Of you guys have to have belief and conviction in what we're selling. You hear that on every sales training, like Jeremy Miner, Daniel G, like all these top sales guys. It's like you have to have belief in what you're selling. And me personally, I didn't. To be honest with you guys, I did not have belief when I first got into life insurance. But if you were looking for an industry to be in where you can have belief in the product, like think about this and someone unmute and correct me if you think I'm wrong. I'm open to challenge anybody. Like I genuinely cannot think of a single product that is more important than what we're selling and protection for someone's family. I've had 8 death claims at this point. One, and I could tell you we don't have time on this call, but I could tell you every single story and the importance of that. But the most important one was, or the first one that comes to my mind was, this was 2 years ago, around this exact time, actually, January, February. I was field training a new agent, and he wanted, like, this is when we had switched to virtual, but he wanted to run a day of in home. So I'm like, all right, well, and I was itching to get back in the field. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll go back out in the field. We'll book a full day of appointments and da da da. So get some whatever leads I could get in that area. Was grinding through, a batch of second chance leads because it was available. And in this county, call this lady. It's like a 5-year-old lead. And she's like, oh, nobody's ever called us about that. When can you come over? I'm like, well, they got me dispatched out there tomorrow. She's like, okay, well, perfect. So book an appointment with this lady, go over there, and we pull up, and it's this $500,000 house on the golf course in Indiana. It's actually like 10 minutes from the Munster office, Gabe Erickson's office. And anyway, so we go in, and it's this family, mid-40s, super sweet, really nice couple. And we I typically try to keep my appointments to an hour. We're actually in there for about 2 hours. Like, we give us cookie and coffee and everything else. And long story short, we put a policy in place to protect the full mortgage. Fast forward 6 months later, wife calls me crying. I answered right away because I save all my clients to my phone. And she said, my husband passed away yesterday at work due to an accident. And she's like, is that policy in force? And so we got the and the husband was perfectly healthy, like 40s, zero meds, no health issues, nothing. We got that death claim paid out, and she was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. And she's like, thank you. I don't know what we would have done if you wouldn't have come over that day. So I genuinely don't know of anything more importantly we could possibly be selling than that. And just to give you guys a personal experience, I'm the oldest. I have 7 younger siblings, but at the time I had 4 younger siblings, 4 younger brothers. And when I was 14, my mom, she passed away 3 weeks later from colon cancer. She was already stage 4. It already spread to most of her body. And she did not have life insurance. She did not have anything. Luckily, my dad was the main breadwinner. The roles would have been reversed. We would have been on the streets. But my mom would stay at home, but like still, even with my dad making all the income and everything else, like we had to come out of pocket, pay for the funeral. We had to hire a nanny and everything else. And that was hard. So it's important, guys. what we do is it's a big deal.
Thank you for sharing, Jonah. I have one more person I want to call on, and then I really want to open up for questions. I know we're pushing 50 minutes. I don't care. I think we got a lot of juice going, and this can just be a long call. Who cares? We're getting stuff out of it. So the next person I'm going to call on is Lewis. Lewis also gets a consistent 15 average presentations a week. A lot of it's going from the one call close, but he actually mentioned something he wants to touch on, which is if obviously we don't want to book an appointment, we don't have to, but if you have to book an appointment, you want to make it a good one. So Lewis, give some juice on that.
Yeah, I would say when I first started out, my goal was just to get into as many presentations as possible, even if it wasn't a high intent presentation. But as maybe the last 2 months or so, I would say I would spend the first, going through the script, asking if there's who else is in the home, whether that's husband or wife or kids, and kind of just not finding their why at the moment, but seeing if it's something that we could even help them out with. And then obviously never running a one-legger. I'll never run a one-legger. And then I found by doing that, I've found myself maybe not getting as many presentations as I was when I first started out, but my show rate for those appointments have been much higher. So just trying to qualify the appointments a little bit better, if that kind of makes sense.
That does. And how would you say your either qualifying your appointments or even tying them down to make sure that they show?
Yeah, well first, so in the script, in Turner's script, I just say, and now is it just you in the home, or do you have a spouse there with you? And then they'll say if they either have a spouse or if they have any kids. And then tying it down, I always say, I mean, this is just all in Turner's script, but I say, all right, Claudia, I've got you down for 5:30 this evening. Now, we are super backed up here at the office this week. All I ask is that you make sure you have your phone on you during that time, that your ringer's on, and that you're available. Can you do all that for me?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll make sure I'm available for you as well, and I'll talk to you this evening.
Not bad. That's good. Thank you.
Of course.
Since we're on the topic of tying down appointments, a couple things I've shared recently to a couple agents that said that it works. A couple golden nuggets I have are, if I say I ask them is there any reason that wouldn't work for you to give you a call around 5:30 later? And if they say no, that should work. I hate the word should. No, that should work or that will work. I need to make sure it's gonna work. Jonah laughs. I say that. I ask them that. And don't. And
It's true.
Something that
It's
Mindy
100%
says
true.
is something that Mindy says is, me saying yes to you is me saying no to another family. So can you please make sure you have your phone on you, you have that your ringer on, and you are available during that time. It's stabs them in the heart, and they don't want to feel bad about no showing. And then the last thing about tying down appointments, and this is my golden thing. I realize a lot of people aren't doing this. If you feel like it doesn't work for you, correct me if I am wrong. But something I liked that is a psychological thing is having them write down the information and having them repeat it back to you. Because you can ask people to write stuff down, and then when you ask them to repeat it back to you, be like, oh my God, my pen wasn't working. Could you repeat that? And when you're telling somebody something, and have somebody role play with you, have somebody book an appointment with you, and you see if you actually remember it when you are not writing it down and not asked to repeat it. You probably won't. When people write it down, they'll see it somewhere, and then once they are reading it back to you, that is 2 areas where they basically had to say it or do something with it. So it's already it's in their head more, and they're not gonna forget. So anyways, we went over 2 really big things, which is getting into more presentations and spending more in leads. I know we are coming up on 256. But I do want to open it up for questions. Somebody, anybody. Unless we don't have any. Unless I've given you so much juice, we don't have any. But if you do, just unmute, drop it in the chat, raise your hand. I don't care. Is anybody struggling with something a ton that they want me or any other top producer to share?
I got one thing, Claudia.
Hit me.
So yeah, this is something that I've been trying to get better at, and what I'm doing, I just explained what I'm doing to try to get better at, but just how do I know when to spend an hour with someone? Like how do I make sure I'm spending my time correctly and going through all these questions and all that? And how do I make it so I'm not wasting my time with someone, pretty much?
I'll give my advice and then Jonah can give his.
Yep.
I'm building zero rapport in the beginning. When I was running appointments, I wasn't one call closing as much. So like I will give it maybe a 5-minute buffer to what I'm gonna say. I was muting the phone and running numbers 8 to 12 minutes into the phone call. I had already gone through everything. I'm getting numbers ready. So if it's a one call close, give it an extra 5 to 7 minute buffer. But if you don't have options ready for them 20, 30 minutes in, you are talking way too much about probably things that don't matter. Once, if you're an hour in, you should be wrapping up an e-app. And if you're not wrapping up an e-app, then yeah, you did something wrong. But like, so try to like pay attention, and then we can like talk about it and like break it down of at what point in the phone call am I muting the phone to like draw options? Is it 45 minutes in, or is it like closer to 20? Because once you have options, you should have, if you're following the script, already explained to them, like what they picked one, already explained to them what they're going to need. So if they're uncomfortable with banking, they should have already told you that. If they're uncomfortable with driver's license and social, they should have already told you that. And you should be starting an e-app by then. And then if you're in the e-app, you should have all that information. Buck, do you have a question, or do you have input?
No, I have a question, but Jonah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, let me answer your question real quick, and then we can get to that. It's just echoing everything Claudia said, and that's really why we've engineered the script the way it is. Like that intro is a good chunk of the script. It's just setting the structure, setting the table. So I think I don't know if you're sticking to that or not, but let them know, hey, this is what's required. This is what my job is: social, banking, boom, 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 boom. And then if they don't give you it's meant to just either 5 minutes in, and either, hey, I'm closing this, or I'm not closing this based on the vibe. And if they give you an objection, then you're acknowledging that objection. And worst case scenario, they're really not serious. Well, if you're sticking to the script, you're going to find that out 5 minutes in versus an hour in. So I think just being really intentional, and then the more presentations you run and the more appointments you get, the better you are at just smelling out if they're serious or not. And then it also depends on to be fair, it also depends on how much they need it. So we're going to figure that out in the financial inventory. Are they both breadwinners? Is one spouse making all the income? Is there going to be an income disparagement? What's the level also of the why in that? And then so actually Gigi messaged me directly. She said, how do you build the why? And I think that the why, I talk about this a lot, but the why is the most important part of the entire presentation. Where, think about it logically, is if you can't come to a solid agreement as to why they need the product, why do you expect them to buy? So the why is not only is it the most important, but it's also where agents struggle the most. And I think a lot of agents, they try to logic sell in the beginning, where they're like, oh, we got this really awesome product, and it's an ROP product. So if you're sick, disabled, passed away, you're getting a check for $300,000. And if you don't have to use it, you got your money back, and it's really great. And da-da-da. It's one thing I want you guys to write down, if you guys are not doing this already: less about the product and its benefits, more about how that solves the client's problem, more about how that solves your customer's problem. Like, yes, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place where you will explain the product, explain the benefits, how it works, all that stuff is great, but figure out their specific situation first and then do that. And then as a brand new agent, when I first started, I would go into homes and I would just argue with people for an hour and a half as to like, you need this. If you pass away, your wife is going to be on the streets and da da da. And, what are you thinking? And, oh, do you care about your family? And it's just this. And if you're doing this, you're not going to get good results. Like Joe Basso's got a really good way of putting it. And write this down if you guys haven't heard this. Everything we say as salespeople suspect, everything the client says is gold. So you have to get the client to say it, not us. It's like I was talking about this in the morning team huddle this morning. It's like the movie, who here has seen the movie Inception? Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, great movie. When I'm on the phone with a client, I like to envision myself as Leonardo DiCaprio, where it's our job as underwriters to plant ideas in the client's mind and make it think that it was their idea, not ours. Because you have to get the client to say it, not us. So then Vish and a few other people, like they just said the importance of being assumptive. So you're not asking questions. You're not asking them, do you want to do this? Do you want that? Like you're not giving them the control, because in order to help a client, we have to maintain control the entire time. So it all involves with something question asking, where it's now, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at the situation here, it looks like, God forbid, if something were to happen to you yesterday, it looks like that would put your wife Mary in a pretty tough financial situation. Would that be a fair assumption? So you want to control the process while giving the client the feeling that, hey, I'm really in control. So 3 track words to write down, if you guys are not, is to use while building the why is number 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because first of all, that not only does that alleviate the sales pressure and allows you the ability to be much more direct with the client. But also, if I am wrong, I want the client to tell me and let me know. Where maybe, let's say they have $4,000 a month in income, but they've got $1,200 coming in from a rental property that I didn't know about, or whatever else. So that changes the situation. I mean, all the information. So always start with, correct me if I'm wrong. And then you follow it up with looking at the situation here, because you never want to say what I see or what it looks like to me, because then you go back into this, and it's you versus them. Versus if you're third partying it and you and the client are on the same team, and the problem is what's going to happen to their family when they pass away, looking at the situation here, then you're third partying it, and then ending it with, would that be a fair assumption? So I'll drop that in chat for everybody, but if you guys are not, those are 3 track words that's really going to allow you to much more effectively build the why.
Thank you. Buck, what's your question?
Yeah, dude. So my question, a couple of cats in here I've been kind of noticing: Moise, Vish, Mother Soul, Ratterman. Dude, you guys write fat policies. Fat. Is it as simple as just showing bigger numbers? Because I feel like I get a lot of deal flow through each week, but I have some large, some small. I mean, what are you guys doing to get them premiums up? Is it in the questioning, or are you just showing bigger numbers? Is it just that simple? Or if Jonah, if you want to give some input on that too, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll let these guys answer, then I'm happy to give input.
I'm going based off kind of their income and how their expenses are at the end of the month. So if they got like $1,000, I don't mind showing big numbers. But I think $1,000 is like, you got enough to spend 200 or 300 on insurance. Like, don't be scared to show them that. If they have 100 or $200, like $50, it's a smaller policy, but like you want to make sure you're putting something in place regardless of the price, even if it's small or big. But if they do have income and extra savings at the end of the month, then show them a few $100. Like this lady today, she didn't have a lot of income, like 2.5 grand. She told me she had 1,000 left over, but I showed her numbers from $100 to $200, and she picked like 160 or something. So it's kind of just how well they save their money, because everyone's different. They can make a lot but spend a lot. So yeah, just kind of go have a rough idea of their expenses.
Yep. Yeah, Vish said it really well. Where I also, it's just if they have a lot of income, exactly what Vish said, show them big numbers. And that was one thing that I didn't do at first as a brand new agent. Because I think a lot of us as new agents, we think that if we show them numbers, they're going to tell us no, or we're going to offend them, or at least that was what I was afraid of, especially when I was going in homes. But then I was told it's like, oh, like if they've got the income, show them what it is. And then I remember so specifically, I was like a couple months into this business, and they were each making 10,000 bucks a month. They were like one they were like mid 60, like lower 60s. One was retired, one was retiring in a couple years. And I put 500 bucks, 800 bucks, and 1,200 bucks a month on the table. And I was so scared. Like I thought they were gonna kick me out of their house. And I like wrote it down and I slid it over. I'm like, all right, well, out of these three options, what makes the most sense to you guys? And then I slid it over. I'm like, they're gonna tell me no. And they looked at it, didn't even bat an eye. They're like, oh, and they kind of like, oh, what do you think, honey? Oh, well. And then they like talked about it a little bit. And then after a couple minutes, they're like, well, could we bump this up down the road if we wanted to? I was like, yeah. and then they're like, all right, well, we'll go with the $800 a month option. And I was just like, and at that point, it was like 2 months into the business, I was just trying not to mess it up. But it's just, if you guys don't show big numbers, you're not going to get big deals. Simple as that. Especially when it comes to equity protection. One thing I started doing that helps me a ton, and if you guys are not doing this, you guys need to start. When you're showing an equity protection, show them the full mortgage coverage for the first option. And all right, Mary, so write down the full mortgage coverage. So it's going to be 1,300 bucks a month. And then, and then the 2 years, the year, blah, blah, blah. But what it's going to do is, first of all, it's going to make, because Hormozy's got a good way of putting it. He says, if you're not making the client gasp when you show them numbers, you're not showing large enough numbers. And so when it does that, because for me, when I was running equity protection, a lot of us have the same issue, is we get in these arguing matches with clients of like, oh, the full mortgage is not going to make sense, and da-da-da, and you don't need that. And they want to cover the full mortgage, show them the full mortgage coverage. That's okay. Again, it's get the client to say it, not you. So because I've had clients where I've shown them a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then they're like, all right, well, I'm going to think about it. I'll get back to you. They didn't really need to think about it in their mind. They're like, okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody that can help me cover my full mortgage, because that's what I was looking for. So when you do that and you show them the full mortgage coverage, you're showing the client, hey, I have what you're looking for. And then you can talk yourself down where it's like, all right, Mary, you'd really have to twist my arm to go with that option. What the majority of my clients do is go with the year or 2 years. And then when you put 130 bucks and 230 bucks on the table, it grounds those other two options and makes those other two options look much more affordable and much more practical. And also, if you're pitching like a his and hers, like a lot of times we'll run into alpha A-type husbands or wives, either or, where they like to be the boss, they like to be in control. Especially if I run into somebody like that, I always like to give people an option that they can say no to. And so whatever, regardless if it's the full mortgage coverage, whatever, like I'm always going to give them a high option that I don't think that's a little bit outside of their budget, just to ground the other two options. And here's the deal, guys, going back to the equity protection scenario, 90% of the time, they're going to tell you no. And they're going to go with a year, 2 years, whatever. But 5-10% of the time, they're going to go with the full mortgage coverage. And you guys are going to be stacking 7, 8, 10 whole life policies together, just maxing out coverage with every carrier you can. And it's going to be a $10,000, $12,000 sale. You guys are never going to get those big sales if you don't show them big numbers.
Moise, do you have a question, or are you going to share how you get bigger deals?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about that. So what I generally try to do is, and I think it could probably help a lot of people. So right when I get into the presentation, I kind of set the table for them to actually expect the big numbers, because I go into that right after I ask them the question if they have looked into the mortgage protection before or not. Generally, 90% of the time, people have not really looked into it, depending on what kind of a leads you're running. So I go about it is basically there are different things that you can do about it. Some people use this, to be able to pay off their mortgage faster. Some people are using this also to be able to fund their retirement. Some people basically use this just to make sure, God forbid something was to happen, that they have that kind of a safety net to protect their loved ones. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about your health situation, and I'll let you know what those options look like. And of course, you be the better judge what makes the most financial sense and stuff like that. So a lot of times they're going to actually ask you how exactly they can pay off their mortgage faster, because people are already paying for that. Now that's where you use an IUL depending on what exactly their age is. Because if they have a $100,000 mortgage balance and they're paying like about $1,000 a month and they have like 20, 30 years on it, more than likely they're going to end up paying like $300,000. But if they're putting in a $500 into an IUL at the end of it, 25 years, their cash value accumulations just with the 6 or 7% return is going to look way more than that 100,000 that they actually owe. So that they can either use it to be able to fund their retirement, or maybe halfway through the process, they can use it to be able to pay off their mortgage. But it also provides them with that insurance safety net as well. Something happens so they can get basically a decent amount of income. At that particular time, really, you can get into the discussion. So I think maybe, I'm not sure. I think not a lot of people are doing that, but maybe if that helps anybody.
That was good. I'm going to bring up one more point that I do that Jonah did not share, nobody else shared. And then I know Tristan had his hand up and then he took it down, so I don't know if he still has a question, but I need to answer more questions. Make sure your options have at least like a $50 range in between them. Like if you are showing 50, 70, and 100, get out. Like obviously, even if you are going to start showing bigger numbers and you're doing 200, 250, 300, like that's still like even just too close. Like make it a wider range. So like let one option be a comfortable one for them to say yes to. Make one option be the one that you hope they say yes to, because that's the best option. And then make the third option, like Jonah said, the one that they will more than likely say no to. So like let it be, 90, 160, 300. Like who cares? Like also like let it be a wider range, because when it's super close, people are like, well, there's not really much of a difference between these three. I'll just go with this one. But when it's a little bit of a wider range, they're like, well, I don't want this super low one, so I'm going to pick the higher one because it has more value. So that's that. Tristan, do you still have a question?
Yeah, it was kind of just like a balance thing, like dialing fresh digital as well as aged mailers. Like obviously you have to work those digital leads, like triple dial them 3, 4 times a day. How do you balance out and like know like when you should be dialing aged and when you should be dialing the fresh? If that makes sense.
Is anybody doing both who wants to speak up and share? If not, I will give my opinion. Okay, I will give my opinion. So something I've learned from hopping on the digital mortgage calls, and I think you would learn a lot of strategy from that, and I wish Malik was on this call, but Malik and Mike Erbling typically run those calls, is the same thing that Bish said. Like if they are working hours, like working age, they're not going to call them in the middle of the day because that lead is more expensive and they want to hit it during certain like hours. So they're like, he's hitting those leads in the evening. And then if they're younger, in the middle of the day. And I personally, and I will give my real opinion if I get back on the phones, like I might, but I feel like, and again, from what I've heard from Malik, is obviously if a fresh one comes in and they're over the age of 65, like call them. But if they're younger, like maybe wait till the end of the day. And I don't know if people do texting. Maybe just shoot Malik a text. But Henry calls both, and Henry raised his hand. Yay, Henry, share. Henry's also a silent assassin who just drops bombs.
Yeah, I haven't been really having as many age leads come in right now because I got a little too many digital. But when I was running them both at the same time, I mean, usually the digital are coming in drip campaigns where they're coming in live, and that is priority. The second it comes in with a digital lead, a live lead, like the difference between 1 minute to 10 minutes can make the difference of never talking to them versus having a lay down one call close. So for me, I'll double tap them and shoot them a text immediately. If I'm on a call, I'll still shoot them a text, even if I can't call them, to let them know, hey, we saw it, schedule an appointment over text. So the digital leads take priority, and the age leads are really just, hey, if you don't have a bunch of fresh digital ones coming in, don't stand up, walk around, take a break. Just go back to the aged ones that you have an abundance of to keep busy, stay busy, stay busy. So that way, when the digital ones keep coming in, they're there to dial. And then for me, if I have a bunch of digital leads I never got, now with CRMs, upload them to the CRM so that they get scheduled for you, or just start dialing them like aged leads again. But it's really just try to get the digital ones ASAP and have aged ones just stay busy throughout the day and get some extra better ROIs from those deals.
Okay, yeah.
That was good. Thank you, Henry. Somebody asked in the chat, struggling building the why with 20 to 30-year-old single people. What angle do you take to make them see the value? Jonah, you want to take this one?
What would you say not to do it?
Scroll
Where's the
up.
question at?
Scroll up a little bit. It's Carl Shaw asked it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would love to take that one. So what you want to say to those clients is, because I think a lot of people try to pitch the death benefit when, if you're between the age of 20 to 30, that's pretty much everybody on this call. Like I always say myself, like I'm my worst client. I hate it when I ran into dudes like me. And so because we're in our 20s, we feel invincible and we think we're going to live forever. So how you sell the 20, 30-year-old is, A, you can just cut off a lot of the fat and just get straight to it. But what I would say is, hey, John, looking at the situation here, and seeing this, if this even would be a good fit for you, and just trying to understand how we can help you. I'm assuming you don't plan on passing away anytime soon. And every time they'll be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay. Like, gotcha. So John, correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously the death benefit's important. And we want to make sure if the home is protected from Mary, God forbid something happens to you. But looking at the situation here, it looks like the primary focus is more so geared towards the living side to cover you on that end. So, God forbid if you do become sick, disabled, cancer, or anything along those lines, that your home is taken care of and covered in that aspect. Would that be a fair assumption? And then going into it from there. And then with the 20, 30-year-olds, a lot of people sell IULEs, but me personally, I love the ROP. Like the Kansas City ROP, any ROP product, that's my baby. Because I'm just so cut and dry with it. Because the simpler, the better. Because if you guys are selling IULs, you got to be super simple with it, or else you're dead in the water. Because especially new agents, they're like, yeah, cash value and index funds and whole life coverage and this and that. And then especially a younger client, will be like, I thought this was for the mortgage protection. And then in their we're excited because it's a really great product, but in their mind, they're like, oh, this person's trying to upsell me, and this just turned into a sales call. Versus if you get on there with an ROP product, you're like, hey, John, so we got this really simple product. Basically how it works is during the life of the mortgage, if you become sick, disabled, pass away, you're getting a check for $300,000. Obviously, you're still young, still in relatively good health. So God willing, we hope you're still alive and well at the end of the mortgage. And God willing, you never have to use this policy. You're going to be getting a check back for $53,940. So either A, this policy's paying out and you're getting a check for $300,000. If you're sick, disabled, or pass away. Or B, best case scenario is you're simply getting all your money back at the end. And then I'll show them that. When I'm having them write out options, I'll typically, if it's a younger client, I'll show them the full mortgage plus 1 year salary, and then the premium. And then below that, the money back at the end. And then full mortgage, premium, cash back at the end. And same thing, half mortgage, premium, cash back at the end. So when you just, kind of cut the fat, you're just straight to it. You're like, boom, 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 here's how it works and everything else. Because when we're calling, what I like about calling older clients an equity protection is, yes, you're selling them less coverage, but they know they're going to die and they know they need it. Where with younger people, you have the opposite problem. They you can get them a really badass product and a really great product, but they don't really see the need. So, when you just combat it and you're just straight to it, like, hey, here's the deal, here's how it works, boom, 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 it's typically pretty effective. Any other questions before I wrap up this call? We got time for one more. Nobody? Going
Hey, I
once?
want to add a comment on the same thing, Jonah, and let me know what do you think about it as well. And I've had a great success with it. Why not you would show a max funded IUL to a young individual, and just show the illustration they're gonna sell themselves. Like if they're 30 and they're putting in about $500, they're probably returning with somewhere around $1 million, 2 million, maybe even more than that. And they has
That's a
that
good question.
access to it.
Yeah, so it depends on what lead it is. So if it's an IUL lead, then of course I'm showing them that. It also depends on how financially literate they are. If we've got Daryl, he's 23 years old, and he's doing construction and everything else, and I show him that, he's just going to be completely overwhelmed. Versus if somebody that's maybe has a finance degree, a little bit more educated, whatever, then I'm breaking an eye. So you also have to gauge as to the client and as to their level of financial literacy as to what makes more sense. And then actually, a lot of time what you guys can do too is help them with it's easy for us to get sidetracked. Like if we're calling IUL leads, that's a completely different story. Like of course, yes, help them with that. But with mortgages, just help them with what they requested. And here's the deal: the hardest sale is always the hardest sale is always the first sale. So if you do want to sell them a large IUL and everything else, maybe you save that for the annual review. A year later, once they trust you, they know you're their insurance guy and everything else, then yeah, upgrade them to a badass IUL. I've done that a few times. So awesome. All right. Well, we went way over on time, but I think this was effective. And let's make it a good week, guys. Reach out to me or Claudia if you guys need anything. Peace.